Now, before we get started on the actual trigger group, uh, I was a little apprehensive of getting into it because there were nothing that I could find online as far as how to do it, pictures, video, nothing. So I decided, well, somebody had to do one of these. It may as well be me. So here we are. There are some processes of this that may, you know, be make you scared. You might be nervous about. If I can do it, anybody can. I'm not exactly the most experienced with this kind of thing. I'm also not the greatest. I'm not an engineer. I'm just an average guy who has some tools. But we're going to get started here. That means tilting the camera down a little so you can see my work surface here. Is that a good view? Yeah, I think that's going to work. First things first, we need to remove the scope rail. Again, that's going to happen with one of the Allen keys provided with the crossbow. As you can see right above the left side, there's an Allen key right in the middle, socket head right in the middle, whatever. You're just going to loosen that. Oh, one other tool you're going to need, I almost forgot. I use this because I happen to have it, but you're going to need a 5/16 socket to loosen that lock nut in there. That's on the opposite side. See, there's our socket head. There's our nut. So that has to come off. Then you can use the Allen key. Back that screw out. Now, if you look here, you can see, kind of see, there's a spring right there underneath the rail. So be mindful of that. Just get a nice firm grip, of the whole assembly, rail and all. This camera back just a hair, gives you guys a little broader area to look at. Now the rail is going to push it. I don't know if you can see well enough, but the rail is kind of pushing itself out. That's because of that spring. But you got to wiggle it the rest of the way out. Make sure you don't lose that little guy. Set the rail to the side. Alright, once your rail is aside, the next step is on the right side, right below the safety lever. You'll see that little hole there inside. Inside there is a grub screw. Again, use one of the provided Allen keys to remove that grub screw. Tiny little bugger. Make sure you put that in your tray so it doesn't get lost. Now behind that grub screw, you're going to find a spring and a small bearing. Very tiny. Again, keep those in your tray so they don't get lost. Your next step is remove these two socket head screws. Again, using provided Allen key. this is the part which may make you a little nervous. I know it made me nervous because I was going blind. Nobody had done it before. Hopefully for you it'll be a little easier, seeing as how you got this video to work with, and you can see it is the right way to do it. It's the only way to do it that I know of. And you're not going to damage your trigger assembly. Now, I've already had this one apart, back together again, and in working order. So what you're going to do, this is where your flathead screwdriver comes in. Now, I'm purposefully using a stubby flathead screwdriver. That's because you get less leverage. Less leverage means less force, hopefully less damage. So what you're going to do, if you look where the actual trigger comes out, there's a slot right here. Well, I'll turn it over to see it better. It's a little opening right there to the side of the trigger. You're going to take your flathead, put it in there, get a nice firm grip on the trigger assembly, and simply twist your flathead. And it takes a little bit of oomph because here and here you have roll pins under that hole and this hole. Now, roll pins are just flat pieces of metal rolled into a tube. They create a tension bond by sticking them in there like that. So once you twist, you'll see that you've opened up a tiny gap between the two pieces, front and rear. You're just going to keep working that gap a little bit at a time, one side and then the other. At this point, if you look in there, I don't know how well the camera will pick it up, but you can see the roll pin right there on this side. You can just barely see it on this side. So just work your way all the way around, even at the top of the trigger box. What you're going to want to do, you can see this side is thinner than that side. You're going to keep the thicker side down to hold all the parts in place. And just work that other wall slowly but surely, going from side to side, up until it pulls off of those roll pins. Now, it may happen differently on yours, but on mine, the roll pins, 1, 2, came with the thinner side. Whenever I take something apart that I haven't taken apart before, I like to take pictures of it as I go. That way you have a nice point of reference for where your parts go when you're trying to reassemble it. Now, I'm sorry for the poor camera, it's what I have. This piece is part of your anti-dry fire mechanism. You're going to lift that away and set it to the side. The next thing you're going to do is this part right here. This is the other part of the dry fire mechanism. Now, it's not in the way. Removing it is not required in order to get the part we're after out. However, it's not in there very solid and could fall out. So we're going to pull it out. Be mindful of the spring and the spindle for it. These parts should be set aside. A separate tray should be used for all these parts, but I don't happen to have one handy, so I'm just setting them to the side. This right here, this piece, from here, this one solid piece here, this is the piece you're after. Alright, now, before we pull this piece out, that spindle is a separate part, and so is that spring. Now, if you just grab this and pull, that spring is going to go flying and you're going to use it.